Good evening, everyone. Today we join 500 million scouts from all over the world in celebrating the Founders Day. We're celebrating 165th birthday of the founder of this great youth movement in which we are members today. Distinguished guests, all senior commissioners, my dear fellow brothers and sisters of Scouts, and all the young Scouts. We warmly welcome you in this evening to the 165th Scout Founders Day celebration of Homagama District Scout Branch in collaboration with the International Department of Sri Lanka Scout Association. It's now time for us to formally commence the program. We would like to get started with the national anthem, and I request the entire gathering to arise for the national anthem.
Sri Lanka Mata, Upper Sri Lanka, Namo, 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 Namo Mata. Sundara Siri Barini, Surani Ati Sobhaman Lanka. Mani Panay Nekamal Palaturu Piri Jaya Bhumiya Ramya. Aphat Sep Siri Set Sadhana, Jeevan Ye Mata. Diliganu Men Aphat Ki Puja, Namo Namo Mata. Up Sri Lanka, Namo 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 Mata. Obve Ap Vidya, Obmaya Ap Satya, Obve Ap Shakti, Ap Had Tule Bhakti. Up Aloke, Apge Anuprane, Ob Ap Jeevan Ve, Ap Muktiya Obve, Nav Jeevan Devine, Nitin Ap Pubudu Karan Mata. Jnana Veer Vadavami Naragin Yanu Men Jaya Bhumi Kara. Ek Mavakage Daru Kel Bevina, Yamu Yamu Vino Pama. Prem Vada Sam Veda Durarga, Namo Namo Mata. Up Sri Lanka, Namo 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 Mata. Up Sri Lanka, Namo 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 Mata.
Traditional lamp as it customary in this part of the world, we commence any auspicious occasion with the wine. Blessing in that light is testament to ushering into positive energy for our program. Keeping aligned with great tradition and culture of Sri Lanka, giving light to this event. Let's start off by inviting our guest to do the honor. First and foremost, I would like to invite to the light today's oil lamp our chief guest, Mr. Jonathan Fernando, Chief Commissioner of Sri Lanka Scout Association, followed by Mr. M.F.S. Muid, Deputy Chief Commissioner of Sri Lanka Scout Association. He'll be followed by our resource person, Dr. Rajiv Piris, International Commissioner of Sri Lanka Scout Association. Also, Dr. Asanka Eriyawa, Headquarters Commissioner of Sri Lanka Scout Association. I also would like to invite Dr. Anil Pereira, District Commissioner of Homagama District Scout Branch. Finally, we'd like to be join us Mr. Ranuka Saman Kumara, Assistant District Commissioner, International and Program of Homagama District Scout Branch. Thank you, sirs.
Let us observe a minute of silence in remembrance of the founder of the Scout movement and these Scout heroes and to pay their respect to them.
Good luck to you, and I wish we may meet again. Thank you.
Now it's time to pay tribute to the father of the Scout movement. We all pay tribute and salute him with a bucket of flowers in remembrance of his service to the Scout movement. Thank you all. Now, I respectfully invite Dr. Anil Pereira, District Commissioner of Homagama District Scout Branch, to deliver his remarks about the program.
Good evening, dear Scouts, Commissioners, brothers and sisters, and well-wishers of the Scout movement. We are really pleased to have this webinar, and thank you for joining this webinar on the celebrated life of our greatest leader and our beloved founder, Lord Baden-Powell, BP. So this webinar is organized in collaboration with the International Division of Sri Lanka Scout Association, and as the Homagama District Scout branch of the Sri Lanka Scout Association, we are really privileged and proud to organize this webinar. And in this webinar, as I already mentioned, we will be presenting an unheard story of our great leader, Baden-Powell. We know Baden-Powell's life is full of experiences, excitements, as well as new stages of development in terms of Scout movement, as well as some historical remarks during last many years. So as we celebrate the 165th birthday of our great leader, we thought we will use this occasion in order to bring some interesting stories of Lord Baden-Powell's life. To do this, and for this purpose, we have invited one of the eminent speakers in Sri Lanka in the Scout movement, Dr. Rajiv Piris, who is the International Commissioner of Sri Lanka Scout Association. As I'm aware, Dr. Rajiv has researched for many years about Lord Baden-Powell's life and his experiences. And out of this collection, Dr. Rajiv has been very kind to prepare a presentation for us and to make this presentation in a webinar for the audience of the Scout movement. And I'm really grateful to our Chief Commissioner, Mr. Janaprit Fernandu, who has been a great pillar of strength and encouragement throughout. So as one of the key districts in Sri Lanka, we are very fortunate and also privileged to have his guidance in all our activities. So thank you very much, dear Chief Commissioner, and also all commissioners of Sri Lanka Scout Association for their great support. So at the end of this webinar, I'm sure you will be very pleased to know some of the hidden or some unheard events of Lord Baden-Powell's life. And at the end of this webinar, I'm sure you will be further attached or affectionate to our great leader because of these interesting events of his life. So thank you very much for joining. And I must thank Dr. Rajiv Piris again for accepting our invitation, as well as to the International Division of Sri Lanka Scout Association for helping us to make this event a success. So without taking further ado, I would allow you to enjoy the webinar and also the key remarks of our chief guest of this evening. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable remarks.
I got the baby spirit right in my head, right in my head, right in my head. I got the baby spirit right in all over me to stay.
Now, I respectfully invite our chief guest, Mr. Janaprit Fernando, Chief Commissioner of Sri Lanka Scout Association, to address the gathering.
Good evening. Ayubowan from Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka Scout Association, together with the Homagama District Scout Association, is commemorating the 165th birth anniversary of our founder, Lord Robert Stevenson Smith Baden-Powell. As we all know, Scouting was founded by Robert Stevenson Smith Baden-Powell in 1907 in Brownsea Island with a trial camp of 20 scouts. Lord Robert Stevenson Smith Baden-Powell was in a school known as Charterhouse, and behind that school was the woods, and he used to love the environment, love the woods, and even without the permission, though the school has banned students from going there, he used to slowly creep into that place and build his love for the environment and the woods. He was also able to walk in the woods without making any noise, so that he could really enjoy the environment. Then as an adult, he joined the Royal Army, he went into India, went to Mafeking, and then came back after retirement, started the Scout movement. He started the Scout movement taking into consideration the experience he had in the army, and also from his school days, the woods behind the school, the Charterhouse School. All this put together, Lord Baden-Powell wrote a fortnightly magazine known as Scouting for Boys and compiled that into a book known as Scouting for Boys in 1908. And today, my dear friends, even as we celebrate the 165th birth of this great personality, Lord Baden-Powell, who was the founder of this great movement, which has existed for 114 years, with a membership of almost 500 to 600 million of scouts going through the 114 years. And today, with a membership of 57 million scouts in 172 national scout organizations and almost 250 countries and territories where scouting is being practiced, and scouting is being done for the betterment of the youth, of young people, to make them better citizens, citizens who will love their nation, citizens who will become good leaders, citizens who are all-rounded, citizens who can be independent. That is what scouting does. And I am very thankful to the District Commissioner, Dr. Anil Pereira, to the Chairman of the Executive Committee, Mr. Pushpakumar, and all the members of the Executive Committee, Assistant District Commissioners, Scout leaders, parents, Scouts, Cubs and Singiti of Homagama District for joining this 165th commemoration, 165th birth commemoration of the founder of Scouting, Lord Baden-Powell. I wish all of you the very best in the future and all success in your Scout endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Your presence here is much valued to us. Thanks again. We are coming up next. It's much weighted item on the agenda because it's now time for us to pay attention to our resource person. And it is indeed honor for me to introduce you, distinguished gentlemen, who's our resource person here this evening. Dr. Rajiv Piris, International Commissioner of Sri Lanka Scout Association. It's time for you, sir. Before you start, special announcement. on Tamil and Sinhala interpretation. You can listen to this session in Tamil and Sinhala languages through Zoom technology. Please use it. Thank you, sir.
Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Chief Guest, Attorney at Law, Janaprit Fernando, National Commissioners, District Commissioner, Dr. Anil Pereira, Assistant District Commissioners, all lay members, Scout leaders, Scouts, parents, and dear friends. It is indeed an honor to present this talk on our founder's birthday. So let me start with the life story of BP. His full name was Robert Stevenson Smith Baden Powell. His father was Baden Powell, so the surname Powell comes from him. After his death, his mother changed the surname to Baden Powell, so it became Baden Powell. The mother's maiden name was Smith, and Robert Stevenson was the name of his godfather. His godfather was Robert Stevenson, civil engineer and designer of train locomotives. The Robert Stevenson was the son of George Stevenson, who is hailed as the father of railways. So BP's parents, BP's father was Reverend Herbert George Baden Powell, a distinguished mathematics professor at Oxford University and a Church of England priest. He had passed out of Oxford with first class honors. His mother was, BP's mother was H.G. Baden Powell's third wife, Henrietta Grace Smith Baden Powell, who was Admiral William Henry Smith's eldest daughter. BP was born as Robert Stevenson Smith Powell on 22nd February 1857 at number 9 Stanhope Street, now number 11 Stanhope Terrace, in Paddington, London, United Kingdom. This is the house behind the street lamp. Probably the most significant event in early childhood of BP was that his father died when he was 3 years old. Subsequently, his mother changed the surname of her own children to Baden Powell. I'll show you in a minute. Young BP was called Stevie by his family. Now, if you see, there were 3 children who were elder to Robert, who was already dead by the time Robert was born. The last boy, Baden Powell, was born in 1960, and his father also died in 1860, and his father also died in 1860. Here is a picture of all the family of Henrietta Grace Smith. Once they, not all, one is missing, but after they grew up. From left to right, this is the second brother, Sir George Baden Powell. George Baden Powell, he was a lawyer and a member of parliament. This is BP's mother. The one on the right is Mr. Warrington Baden Powell, eminent lawyer and Queen's Counsel. All these 3 were Oxford graduates, right? This is BP. We don't know who this is. This is Frank Baden Powell, another elder brother. This is Agnes, the younger sister. This is Major Baden Powell. You need to remember these 2 faces because they come later in the story. And here you look at this. The first wife was Eliza Rivas, who died in 1836. In 1837, Professor Baden Powell married Charlotte Hope.
Sorry for interruption. So slide is not there. So only the first slide we can see.
You should have told earlier. So what's happening? I should unshare and share again?
Yes, sir. It's better.
අනේ කිව්වනම් හොඳයි නැත්තම්. Okay, I'll have to now go through 5 minutes of slides. Okay,
Now okay, sis. Thank you.
right. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay,
Now okay.
okay, but I have told all this how the names came. This is the father and the mother. This is the house where he was born. Can you see now? Can
Yes,
you
sir.
see? Are
Yes,
the
sir.
slides moving?
Yes, sir. That's like
Okay.
that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So here are the 10 children, 3 dead before he was born. And here's this. So the person who is here is the second brother. He was a MP. Can you see my pointer? Warrington was a Queen's Counsellor, lawyer. Frank Baden-Powell was an author. Agnes here and Major Baden-Powell. So Eliza Rivas died in 1836. Then he married Charlotte Pope 1 year later. She had 4 children. And see, they are all Powell. Okay. She died 1844. 1846, Professor Baden-Powell married Henrietta Gray Smith. And Henrietta Gray Smith had 10 children. You can see 9 names here. The red line denotes our founder. These 3 died before the founder was born. And you can see all these names end with a Smith Baden-Powell. So Baden-Powell is now the surname of these children, and Powell is the surname of these children. That was the distinction the Baden-Powell's mother made. So Baden-Powell first attended what is called a dame school in Kensington Square, London, England. This is what Kensington Square looks like today. Dame schools were small, privately run schools for young children run by learned, respected ladies for a small fee in their homes. So they were informal schools. However, they gave some kind of structured education. His first proper school was Rose Hill School, Turnbridge Wells, Kent, England. This the picture below gives the original school. It was this is at Turnbridge Wells in Kent. It was later taken to Surrey. Now Turnbridge Wells have put a plaque in the wall saying this is here. Baden-Powell was here when the school was here. This is a co-educational proprietary school for children 3 to 13 years. After 13 years, BP got a full scholarship to the prestigious public school called Charterhouse. Now, Charterhouse was one of the top 9 public schools in the whole of Great Britain at that time. Charterhouse was originally in central London. Then it was taken to a place called Godalming. And BP was in its old location in central London when it moved to Godalming, and he studied in the Godalming site as well. This is the Godalming site. It's a very, very grand looking school. Now, as the Chief Commissioner said, at Godalming, the school was surrounded by woodlands known as the Copse. This was BP's adventure playground when he would practice many unique skills. At the beginning, he hated maths and he slept at French lessons, but loved music, singing, football, and rifle shooting. He could draw beautifully with both hands. He was a member of the Cadet Corps. He was an excellent rifle shooting champion. He had many skills in school extracurricular activities and beyond. He could imitate people. He could cry like birds. He could cry like a wolf. He could imitate females. By the time he left, he had become a good student, even academically, and the headmaster's report says satisfactory in every way. This is Girdlestonite's house in Charterhouse, where BP lived. In 1901, after BP became a very famous person, he visited Charterhouse, the old site and the new site, both in 2 days. And this was written up in various papers. I have put a paper cutting here as well. BP's vacations were, of course, spent with his brothers, sailing, rowing, hiking, and exploring. He first enjoyed scouting skills, hunting and cooking, avoiding teachers in the woods near Charterhouse. And these woods were strictly forbidden for the students. However, he went there. His mother had siblings planned for him to enter Oxford University. To their disappointment, he failed the entrance exam. Now, there's an alternate story to this, that he went and met a professor at Oxford who was a friend of his late father. He told the professor, I am only willing to spend 1 year in university. After that, I have to get on with my career. And the professor had told him, you better not come to Oxford, go to some other university. Anyway, he was not going to Oxford. And this was difficult for him because all his older brothers were honor students at Oxford. That is what Oxford looks like. So there was an army officer training exam coming up. And he eagerly prepared for this 12-day bar exam for army officer training. And he did extremely well. He came 5th in the infantry out of 718 and 2nd in the cavalry in the final rankings. And he became a cavalry officer. In 1876, BP, age 19, joined the 13th Hussars Brigade as a second lieutenant and was posted to India. Now, the first 6 in the rankings were directly recruited without going to Sandhurst Military School. They were also given preponed appointments. That means their appointment was, dated backwards. So now we come to the 30 years of military service of BP. So you can see the year here, age, rank, regiment, opponent, significant event, and country. And there is a small thing here. And there is a map how he traveled. Okay. So because this military service of BP is thoroughly confused by everybody. You hear a few words and you put it everywhere. No, that is not right. So in 1976, he left England, went to Bombay and then to Lucknow, and he joined the Hussars. So now see, he has 1976 December, he is already in Bombay, right? And then in 78, he's still a lieutenant. He was in India. 79, he became sick and he went to England for treatment. And he came back. Same way. Went and came the same way. And 1880, he was fully fit and he was posted to Northwestern Frontier. 1883, he was promoted a captain and he was pig sticking or hunting wild boar. And he won in 1883 what is called the Kadir Cup, which is like the Super Bowl for pig sticking. While he was here as a captain, he went to Kandahar for 8 months for training and service. So this is the Kadir Cup. This picture shows the pig sticking team of the Hussars. And this is BP's picture just after he won the Kadir Cup. And this is a painting of how the pig sticking happens. Now by 1884, he was 27 years old captain and he was involved with the Zulus. Intelligence work, no fighting. He was in the Natal province in South Africa. So from Lucknow to South Africa, and he was in Durban, South Africa. BP carried out a 600-mile military survey of Natal province, Natal frontier. 600 miles. Now imagine Sri Lanka is less than even 200 miles. So it's a long run for 600 miles. So he went back to England in 1885 to 1886 and returned in 87, again with the Hussars. And then in 1888, he started working with the Zulu. Dinizulu was the last king of the Zulus, right? And he was the military secretary and the intelligence officer, and he was promoted to major by this time. he had a very different way of shooting with the rifle. If you can see this hand-drawn diagram, you can see how he's keeping his gun between his legs and shooting downwards or backwards. Whereas a normal person is shoots forwards. And the people used to be amazed by this, the native Zulus, and they used to call him Malala Pansi, which means he who lies down to shoot. So this is Dini Zulu. This is Dini Zulu in later years. And this is his famous necklace, the beads of which go to make the wood badge. So he was still in South Africa. And then in 1889, he was a major and secretary to the Swaziland Committee. He was actually not engaging militarily, but he was patrolling for Boer. Boer means they are the white South Africans and Zulu encroachers. And this around that time, there was the second Anglo-Boer War in Swaziland. Now Swaziland is now called Eswatini. So that is here. It is bordering a small country bordering South Africa. In 1890 to 1893, he was military secretary and he went to Malta as the military secretary. He was also so many other things. Senior aide-de-camp to the commander-in-chief and governor of Malta, who was his uncle, Henry Augustus Smith. And he was the intelligence officer for the Mediterranean, spying on various other European countries. Malta is a country in the tip of Italy, in the southern tip of Italy. So he used to disguise as a butterfly collector and he used to draw butterflies. But while he was drawing butterflies, he used to draw military installations in the wings of the butterfly. Only he could see them. And he used to take photographs of everything what he wanted hidden in the wings of the butterfly. At this time, his mother and sister visited him in Malta, not very far away from England. This is a picture of a group of officers with him here. There is also a mention of a Caroline Heap, who was his constant companion on many social occasions. Now, her father was posted to Constantinople and Caroline went with the father, and never was she mentioned ever again in Baden-Powell's story. So in 1893, being a major, he went to Ireland, and there he distinguished himself as an officer. BP caught the eye of the absolute command of the chief, General Wolseley. Then later, about a year later, he was doing maneuvers in Berkshire and as a brigade major to General French. And General French in his report gave a special mention for the smooth handling of scouting and reconnaissance. Then this big chief in the army asked BP for a report on cavalry machine gunners. Now, from Ireland, in 1895, he went to Ghana. It was called the Ashanti land, Ashanti. This is again non-combatant. So, the king of the Ashanti was called, you can see here, Prempe. Prempe was the king of the Ashanti. So, now, from the Ashanti only comes the left handshake, not from anywhere else, from the Ashanti, right? Ashanti would give their left hand to show they are brave and to show that you are their friend. At this time, he started wearing this hat, which is called the campaign hat. He wore it all the time. And the local Ashanti people used to have a nickname for him called Katanki, the man with the big hat. The Ashanti did a lot of pioneering work from which he studied a lot of pioneering. They also went on jungle hikes. Now from Ghana, he went to Bulawayo in Zimbabwe. It was called Matabeleland and then became Rhodesia later, and now it is Zimbabwe. And he drew a sketch of the coach event in 10 days and 10 nights of continuous going. And there was a siege like the Mafeking. They went to relieve that company that was in siege in Bulawayo. He met these two guys, Frederick Russell Burnham, Jan Grootboom. Frederick Russell Burnham became a lifelong friend. And these two were expert. They taught BP woodcraft, code of honor of a frontierman, exploration, tracking, fieldcraft, and self-reliance. Also during this time, right, in Matabeleland, in the Somabula forest, BP discovered the kudu horn. He blew it in the 1907 camp. He blew it in Gilwell, and his grandson blew it in the 2007 UK 100-year Jamboree. In 1896, he was now promoted Lieutenant Colonel. He went to the Gold Coast, that is Ghana again, right? And now here, this is a different thing. The chief of the military, this is the supreme commander, like, he picked BP for difficult appointment. Prempeh, the king of Ashanti, had refused all attempts to make his country a British protectorate, sending troops through thick jungle for 145 miles. 145 miles calls for record organization and precaution. The difficult and dangerous journey took a month to reach the king's village in Kumasi. He was captured without fighting. There was no fight. Actually, Baden-Powell wanted a war now. He was in the military, still no fighting. He went for this, very prepared for a fight, but Prempeh just, when they saw him, he just said, okay, no fighting, what do you want? And had a discussion, and then finally he was exiled to Seychelles. In 1897, after 21 years in the Hussars, he decided to change, he got an opportunity to change the regiments. He was promoted brevet colonel. He was sent to India. He became the youngest colonel in British Army history. But when he went, the Hussars put a tremendous show, a magnificent parade, for which he was very touched. Its soldiers, anyway, the Royal Dragoon Guards is an aggressive reconnaissance force. Its soldiers use an arsenal of armored vehicles to navigate all sorts of environments and terrains in search for enemy troops. So, Ghana to India, right? So, in 1899, he was commander of the African garrison. He organized a legion of frontiersmen in Transvaal border. Then he was asked to go to this small town called Mafeking because the Boer army was coming and trying to capture it. Then he went there, and there was a 270-day war. This was real war with shells coming, and he used a lot of trickery. He had made tin, like a searchlight with tin boxes. And he used to take this from place to place and light it in various times of the night so that the Boers thought that he had so many searchlights. In the morning, he made the army walk through. He used to have poles at various places outside their border, their fence. Just poles on the put to the floor. Like there was a barbed wire fence. Only there was no fence. But those fellows used to act like there was a barbed wire fence and make elaborate moves to get over the fence. And this was being watched by the other fellows. So he used to take the same gun from various places and fire from various places with the same gun. He organized this very well. So the fellows who were watching from outside thought, my God, so many searchlights, so many wires, so many guns. So he did so much of deception like this, and finally held it for 217 days. And on the 16th of May, the Mafeking was relieved, And the people who came to relieve, his younger brother was there. That's how he becomes a Major Baden-Powell, brother of BP. And BP was by this time a national hero. See, these are scenes from Mafeking. You can still buy original ones, these commemoration plaques with his this thing. He was a celebrity by that time for 75 pounds from eBay. And see, 1,500 he had, the opposition had 8,000. His death percentage is much higher than the other guys. But look, the other guys more killed. Here is a boys' brigade. We will talk about in a little while. All the boys were doing various things that adults could do and release the adults for the war. And even the money was authorized by him. Now, this is very important. I don't think many of you ever has gone into this. This is a book called Letters of Queen Victoria. Now, April 1st, Queen Victoria writes to Baden-Powell saying, okay, we are behind you, go ahead. Then this is that Supreme Chief of the Army. He writes like this about Baden-Powell sometime later. Colonel Baden-Powell has now been 3 years a full colonel, and he is one of the most promising officers. His defense of Mafeking is beyond all praise. And Lord Wolseley feels that his promotion would be hailed by the army as well-deserved. After Mafeking was won, the Queen and King of Sweden sends a telegram congratulating Queen Victoria. Here is another telegram by the King of Portugal in Portuguese, congratulating Queen Victoria. Now, Queen Victoria sent this very important telegram to Baden-Powell. The second telegram, after Mafeking was relieved. I and my whole empire greatly rejoice at the relief of Mafeking after the splendid defense made by you through all these months. I heartily congratulate you and all under you, military and civil, British and native, for the heroism and devotion you have shown. So that's how he became a celebrity. Now, in between 1900 and 1903, he was in South Africa, and he was asked to, later during that stay, he was the first Inspector General of the South African Constabulary. He was a big man. He was asked to, so British planning, this is the British planning for the post-war period included a paramilitary force of police to police the conquered Boer republics. This resulted in creation of the South African Constabulary. The SAC is a military outfit disguised as a police force. BP was in charge of recruiting and training SAC. However, after 7 months, he got sick and he went back to the UK. So this is at that time, that same uniform with this regular horse. So he goes back to Britain and he is made Inspector General of the Cavalry. And then later he is promoted. This is in 1907. In 1907-18, he was promoted Lieutenant General, but in the early part of this, he was in an inactive duty, not in active duty, he was in inactive list. Then he was given the territorial command of the Northumbrian Division of newly formed Territorial Force. So now we go back to 1907, magic time. He has been on the cover of many newspapers, front page pictures. He had publicity. He had done lecture tours around the country. He had affiliation with youth organization. A publisher was urging BP to print scouting for the boys. He had already written a book for the army. So he had support from the good and the great people. But he had no practical experience working with young people using his own specialized training system, which was experimental, and he wanted an experimental camp very badly. In May 1907, BP went fishing in Ireland and met those two people, Mr. and Mrs. Charles Van Ralte. So he told this story, I want to do this camp away from the press, away from the public. I want to train boys and see how it goes. And then immediately Miss Charles said, I own an island called Brownsea Island. It is 500 acres. You can use it. And it is covered, it is surrounded by water. Nobody can get there. So he started sending this letter. These are handwritten letters by Baden-Powell. Baden-Powell wrote to parents, boys need to be trained in 3 knots. reef knot, sheet bend, and clove hitch. They also need to be able to swim. This is a letter written by, this is a sea, Brownsea Island, Dorset. This is a letterhead of Brownsea Island. This is BP's handwriting. He had written the first letter, 26, which means he has come well before the camp. So this was his staff for the camp. He had a military colleague with him. He had another Coast Guard, he's the officer in charge, one of the Coast Guard station, and he was going to teach first aid and firefighting. Henry Robinson was another military colleague. And this Captain George Green was also a sort of a colleague. He was in the catering business and he was going to provide all the meals. So again, I told just now that by July 26th, they were all there. So this is Brownsea Island. You can see the Brownsea Island here and here. It is in Poole Bay in Dorset in England. The camp was held from 1st to 9th. You can see here in England, here in the Poole Harbor, here. And this is the sea. You can see the sea on this side. 1st to 9th August 1907. Officially, 20 boys participated, but the actual count is 22. This is how it goes, because there was one guy who said he is not coming and he turned up. And that is apparently in the list. So there were local boys brigade 10 from rather poorish families. Wealthy private boarding schools, 11, most of them were sons of BP's friends. Then his nephew, called Donald Baden-Powell, he had an illustrious career later on, went to become a professor in Oxford. But and also he was in a good career, army career. He was 9 3/4 years old, and he was a camp assistant. Camp fee was like this, but today it will be like this in pounds. And this house is the mansion inside Brownsea Island, right? Where the Von Raltes had their, they lived on and off, and then they had their parties, etc. They used an army bell tent. The average year of a boy was 14 years. The youngest was Donald Baden-Powell, as I told you. There were 4 petrels, wolves, ravens, bulls, curlews. The children did not have uniform shirts. They were wearing khaki scarves. Can you see the bell tents here? And this is a staff tent. BP presented them with brass fleur-de-lis logos. You can see the fleur-de-lis logos, right? After passing the test on the knots, the chase, and the national flag, they were given another brass logo that read "Ready." Now, none of these original badges ever exist today. Why? Because when they were coming through the river, the sea, back to land, all the boys got together, and for some strange unknown reason, together they threw all these badges ceremonially into the sea, right? So each day was based on a different theme, right? So here are the themes. They showed that he was training them in a wide variety of skills, and every day had a program, the highlight of which was the supper, the campfire yarns, and in the evening. There was a trekking pit, there were games, there was an open space for throwing life and rescue lines. BP gave instructions everywhere. Making a camp and loom for camouflage, the boys had never done before. They learned that. Then they played an observational activity called Old Spotty Face. So the camp finally ended. The boys went home, and now their memories. This big stone is there. There is a statue of BP in Poole Harbor, and this is the place where the camp was from the other side, if all the other photographs are taken. And many years later, BP wrote, the troop of boys was divided up into 4 petrels of 5, the senior boy in each being the petrel leader. This organization was the secret of our success. Each petrol leader was given full responsibility for the behavior of his petrels at all time. And remember, BP deliberately mixed town boys with public school boys and separated brothers. Now, this is very interesting. You must listen to this carefully. The camp never had any visit. Camp didn't have official visitors. One night, one Raltes, son and daughter, went to see the camp. They were caught by the police. The police means the boys who were acting as police in the night. Then another night, some people who came on a picnic to Bouncy Island, they came to see, and they were also caught by the people who were on duty for the security of the camp. That means the boys did that, right? Now, nobody was permitted, no press. But the last day, for the campfire, and just before that, the demonstration, they had demonstration of martial arts, they had demonstration of cooking, mat weaving, and many other things, first aid, and so many other things. They asked parents to come. They asked this one guy from the press to come, Percy Everett, very distinguished person who later joined the Scouts. You can see him in Scout uniform here. 20 years later, he wrote like this: I can see him as he stands in the flickering light of the fire. He's talking about the campfire, the last day, one campfire he witnessed. An alert figure, full of joy, full of the joy of life, now grave, now gay, answering all manner of questions, imitating the call of birds, showing how to stalk an animal, flashing out a little story, dancing and singing round the fire. That sums up what basically BP did in the campfire every night. So there are a lot of army influences in scouting. Now in 1976 in Lucknow in India, he observed that none of his men knew the basic first aid, outdoor survival, was not able to follow a trail, tell directions, read danger signs, or find food or water. So many years later, he wrote a book, Aids to Scouting, right, to teach his men resourcefulness, adaptability, and the leadership qualities demanded by frontier conditions, right? This was written nearly 20 years later, but this was something he wanted to do for 20 years. Then Mafeking. Any boy in Mafeking over 9 years were recognized into Mafeking, were organized into Mafeking Cadet Corps. They took over various duties such as message carrying, orderly work in the field kitchens, anything that could free a trained man for combat duties. The courage and the resourcefulness shown by the boys at Mafeking made a lasting impression on him. Then he finally became sick and went no second time. When BP returned to London, then he was a national hero. He found that his little handbook written for soldiers was being used to teach observation and woodcraft to members of the boys' club and boys' brigade. Now, this is not Scouting for boys. This is Aids to Scouting, the one he wrote for his soldiers. It had captured the imagination of the English boys and was widely read. BP felt the need to rewrite the book, especially for boys. And then this is the South African constabulary uniform, which was nearly the same uniform for Scouts in the beginning. By 1908, Scouting began to grow. His bi-weekly 6 books have been combined into one book. He drew all these Scouts, Boy Scouts, and then he gave us a letter like a certificate to all the people who joined. Then these are first class certificate. When you get a first class, you get the badge and the certificate. Then there was a rally, first Scout rally in Crystal Palace, 2009. There were 11,000 boys, and it was a grand success. Now this is where Crystal Palace is. These are sort of scenes from the. Now something happened, unexpected. Hundreds of girls wore some kind of uniform. They arrived late, they didn't buy tickets without an invitation, but they won the hearts of all present. And at the rally, there were some problems because there were some church groups who were doing scouting. There were some other organizations which were doing scouting, and they were against one law which said the scout is a brother to every other scout. So this was sort of an issue those days. And then finally, Jeffrey Elves, he introduced Scout Zone, a simple multi-religious meditation. This Scout Zone started in Crystal Palace Rally. So in 1910, now he has been discussing with his sister that we should start something for the girls, right? BP and Agnes Powell published Girl Guides, a suggestion for character training for girls. And this is that original book. You can see the original cover here. It came with part 1 and part 2. BP officially started Girl Guides movement in 1910 with his sister Agnes Baden-Powell. That's a picture of Agnes Baden-Powell when she was young. And this is a picture of Agnes Baden-Powell after many years of guiding. No, really, I mean, she was very old when this was taken. And she was always called the first girl guide. In 1918, BP wrote a program book, Girl Guiding for Girls aged 8 to 18. It was also called the official handbook. This is one of the first editions in very, very long ago. Now, in 1912, he did a world tour. Right? He was traveling to West Indies, United States, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa for a lecture tour. He was going in the ship called RMSP, Arcadian Ocean. This is actually that same ship. There's only one ship by that name. Now this is scrapped. It's no longer in existence. This is this Arcadian going in the seas. And he met Harold Soames and his daughter, Olive St. Clair Soames. They were going on a winter vacation to Jamaica. Although born 32 years apart, Olive and Robert found many things in common between them, including the same birthday. By the time the ship arrived in Jamaica, a very close relationship had developed between them. So, very soon, Olive St. Clair Soames was 23 years old and BP was 55 years old. Both of them had their birthday on February 22nd. So today is Olive's birthday as well, right? To prevent a newspaper invasion, the couple secretly married in October 30th, 1912. So this is, believe it or not, this is the actual wedding photograph of Olive St. Clair Soames and Robert Baden-Powell. However, the word got out. The Scouts of England got to know, oh, our bosses got married. So they donated 1 penny each. 1 penny is 1 cent, but much more powerful than 1 cent. But everybody put one, and they bought a car as a wedding gift for the new couple. He also got a car much later on in a Jamboree. I'll tell about it later. This is their first car. They had 3 children. Arthur Robert Peter, later the next Baron Baden-Powell. He died before the mother, after the father, but before the mother. Then Heather and Betty. They all did scouting. Here's a picture of the family of scouts. Between 1914 and 1918, the First World War broke, and then the scouts were taken for non-combatant duty, helping soldiers in the war effort. On August 4th, 1914, just after the war started, Robert Baden-Powell founded the scout movement, volunteered scouts to support the war effort. They weren't to have military role, but could undertake work which released men for service in the armed forces. At the end of the war, this was the letter handwritten by BP to all those who came and helped the war effort for doing such a good job, congratulating them and thanking them. In 1916, Wolf Cub began. Baden-Powell created a section called Wolf Cubs for boys under 11. This section was based on the famous novel The Jungle Book, written by Rudyard Kipling much earlier. Now, this is Rudyard Kipling. This is the cover of the first book he wrote in 1894. This is Rudyard Kipling's father, John Lockwood Kipling, who drew the pictures, the paintings for the book. And these are his pictures from the first book. And they talk of a the jungle called Sioni in Madhya Pradesh in this book. Now, in 1916, the Wolf Cubs Handbook was published. This is the original edition. In 1919, they acquired the Gilwell Park. The land area of just over 100 acres, located in Epping Forest near Chingford, which is a suburb of London. The area was a farm in the early ages. In 1919, Boyce McLaren, he was a scout commissioner. He bought it, purchased it, and donated to the scout organization for camping for London scouts and training scout leaders. Now, all the scouts are camping, and not only scout leaders, everybody is training as well. Leaders, leader trainers, commissioners, scouts, everybody, other groups, all are training in Gilwell Park, but it's a good place, and there's a lot of good work. Gilwell Park is home to leadership training of the scout movement, and is a campground and activity center for scouts and guide groups. So This is Paxil, home of the Baden-Powells from 1918, 20 years from 1918. Okay. So BP bought this house in Surrey with money donated by Oliver's father. Oliver's father insisted that they buy a house. The Baden-Powells did 2 new constructions there. And after BP's death, it when during the wartime it was taken over by the army. Then when the army left, the Girl Guides Association took over. Then there was a home science training school there. And finally, it's a residential nursing home since 1988. So if you grow old and feeble and you have a lot of money, you can go and stay in this by paying some money. So the first World Jamboree happened in 1920. It was held in July 30th, August 8th, July 30th to August 8th, 1920 at the Olympia Stadium in Kensington, Great Britain. Now, here's the thing. The Olympia Stadium is a prestigious, huge, very upmarket, then giant structure like, a convention center, a fully fledged convention center. But on BP's request, the Olympia Stadium was filled with a layer of soil about a foot deep and covered with grass so that scouts could camp there. About 5,000 camped at an additional site. There were about 3,000 here. But 5,000 camped somewhere else, the old deer park near Richmond. One night, the Thames flooded the campground and all the scouts had to be evacuated. Now, there were 8,000 scouts for 34 countries. Sri Lanka was called Ceylon then. India was still called India, but their flags are different, and so are some of the other countries. The flags are different at that time. Here is Olympia Convention Center, right? The first International Scout Conference was also held in the meantime. 33 National Scout organizations present. This first International Scout Conference, now called World Scout Conference. Then International Bureau of Scouting was also established. Later it became the World Bureau. Now it is called WASM. So anyway, how did this name Chief Scout of the World come? So in honor of Baden-Powell's role as the founder of the Scout movement, he was nominated the title of Greatest Red Indian Chief by James West, the Chief Scout Executive of the United States of America. And the ceremony was for August 6th. Now, during this ceremony, one little boy started shouting, "Long live the world's Chief Scout." That term was never used before. And then others started shouting. Finally, the whole crowd started screaming, "Long live the world's Chief Scout." Right? And from that day, Baden-Powell was always known as the world's Chief Scout. Here is Baden-Powell's speech in the first World Jamboree. Can you hear the audio? Can you hear the audio? Can somebody tell me?
No, sir.
Wait, there is some. No, wait. Somebody can help me. From here you can go, but it doesn't appear in my one. Stop share.
We can hear.
Yeah, you. No. You can
there's a
hear me,
video
but not
clip,
the audio of the. I'll share again. Huh? Now okay. Okay. Can you hear?
Yes, sir. Now can.
Yes.
Okay, right, fine.
To listen to your promise and think it over as you've never thought before. You promise, on my honor, your honor, mind you, to do my best, to do my duty to God and to the King, and to obey the Scout law. Will you do your best? Answer me.
So in 1923, Kandastag International Scout Center was created. With BP's blessing, the International Scout Center was opened in Kandastag. This was there was a big tunnel being created nearby, and this is where all the workers stayed. And when the tunnel was finished, this was empty. So BP himself visited the Kandastag in 1930. It is considered a permanent mini World Jamboree site, right? In 1929, there was the third World Jamboree. Baden-Powell was named a baron. Okay, BP was made a baron in 1923 Third World Jamboree. It was held in Arrow Park in Upton near Birkenhead. Right, it was scouting for boys. That is the book 21st and birthday, and the jamboree was called the Coming of Age Jamboree. 30,000 scouts and 300,000 spectators came to that jamboree. On February 22nd, his birthday again, he was 72 years old. BP was made the Baron by King George V. Remember, he started with Queen Victoria. Now it is King George V. His title was the first Baron of Gilwell. 1929, Third World Jamboree. Something else happened. They want to give some gift to Baden-Powell. They didn't know what to give. They made various inquiries. Finally, somebody, the Chief Commissioner of UK, I think he was the Chief Commissioner of UK. He got Olive to spy on the husband to see what he wanted. So Olive said, don't know what, but he one day said that our car is giving trouble. Time we bought a new car. Okay, you'll get a car. So they want to get the best car available in the UK, which is a Rolls-Royce. And there was no time. Rolls-Royce first refused. But when they heard the Rolls-Royce was going to Baden-Powell, they agreed to make it. So they had to halt another production line, get 2 production lines together to make this car. And you can't imagine the prestige Baden-Powell had at that time. Rolls-Royce had never done this ever before. They have the Rolls-Royce insignia here in the top of the radiator here, right? They agreed to put the Scout emblem here instead of the Rolls-Royce emblem. Now, this was, those who went for the 2007 Jamboree would have seen it in the front porch of this car is still running there. So immediately this is when he was presented with the car. He was giving a kind of a speech, and then they drove the car there. And immediately he said, let's call it the Jam Roll. Why? Jamboree Rolls. So he lived up to 5 jamborees. He visited 5 jamborees, and the third one was supposed to be the cleanest jamboree ever. There are so many taps and so many toilets and so many cleaning. The cleaning department was very strong. It's called the cleanest jamboree. It was held in the Blumendal area. This is Blumendal. There's 2 sides, one for the Sea Scouts and one for the other main camp. And 28,000 plus scouts came from 54 countries. This was the World Scout Jamboree, where 81-year-old Robert Baden-Powell gave his farewell as an active scout. And in his speech, he pointed out the symbol for this jamboree, the Jacob staff, that is this one, and took his farewell. And he said, I am nearing the end of my life. Most of you are in the beginning. So I want your lives to be happy and successful. You can make them so by doing your best to carry out the Scout law all your days, whatever your station and wherever you are. Now, goodbye. God bless you. God bless you. By the time he was 81, his health was not very good. He went back to Africa with his wife. By then, there were more than 2 million scouts scattered around the world. And this house was made for him. It was called Pax 2 because his best friend made it for him, Eric Sherbrooke Walker. He was almost next door. He had put up a hotel there. The hotel was a star-class hotel, doing very well. So he asked, he volunteered to build this for BP. And BP asked, Eric had asked what to call this. And he said, I lived in Pax Hill so long. So let's call this Pax 2, Pax 2, Pax 1, 2. But then Pax TWO becomes TOU. So that's how Pax 2 name came. And on January 8, 1941, Baden-Powell died. So we lost Lieutenant General Robert Stevenson Smith Baden-Powell, the first Baron of Baden-Powell, Baron Baden-Powell, Sir Robert, Stevie to his family, Bathing Towel to some of his early army colleagues, Robin to Olive, and BP to us scouts. By the time he died, he had all these honors behind his name. That was from his funeral. I have a short clip from his funeral. Thank you, Milinda Dinar, for making this a very small clip. So, interestingly, Westminster Abbey, where queens and kings are crowned and buried, this had reserved a crypt for Lord Baden-Powell and Lady Baden-Powell. Still, the crypt is, he never acts, he declined very politely, but they keep the crypt still, and in that crypt, they have written like this: give thanks for, and written this plaque in the crypt. So according to his wishes, he was buried in St. Peter's Cemetery in Waji Nature Park in Kenya. It's a bird sanctuary, and this is where it is, right? And initially, the headstone was like this. Only his name was there. But after Olev died, age 88, in 1977 in England, he was cremated, and the ashes were interred here with him. And now, if you go there now, it will be looking like this. Both their names are there. Now, in his study, this was there. This is the original. It's a photograph of the original paper that was found in his study. And it's a last message. He had written it before, quoting Peter Pan, that the pirate king was always, saying his last words because he may not have the strength to say so when he is dying. So at the end, he says, be prepared in this way to live happy and to die happy. Stick to your scout promise always, even after you have ceased to be a boy, and God help you to do it. And he signs off as your friend Baden-Powell. So these are the books written by BP. These are the 6 fortnightly books, which was combined into one book, which I said earlier. So he has written 11 books in scouting and guiding. 11 books. Like Scouty Boys is just one, okay? These not counted as 6. It's just one book, Scouty for Boys. And it came out in these 6 and then later put to 1. So 11 books in scouting and guiding. On war, he had written 9 books, right? And on other subjects, from ambidextrity to sketches to autobiography to various things, he has written this. By the way, Scout Your Boys became the 8th most selling, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 most selling in the last century, okay? So here are 3 biographies. This one can't be taken in full. This is supposed, Tim Gill's book is supposed to be the most critical, most authoritative book on Baden-Powell's life. It's rather critical and controversial as well, but it cannot be taken free from internet. Gives you first 500 pages or whatever, with pages missing in the middle and various things like that. Harold's book, yes, you can download the complete one, and this guy's book also you can download the entire life. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this journey through time. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Hi, sir.
Hi.
I'm from Malaysia.
Yes. Hello.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sure, please.
Where did Baden-Powell grave? Where is he buried?
He's buried in Kenya.
Okay, thank you, sir.
He's buried in Kenya in a bird sanctuary.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Sir,
Yeah.
can we visit the place?
Yeah, you can. In fact, there is a hotel nearby, and you can stay there, and you can. There are a lot of visitors. If you go in scout uniform, there's a Baden-Powell cemetery in Pax2. If you go in scout uniform, they don't charge you any money. Otherwise, they charge you a small amount.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, Anil. So I hope you learned something new. At least one thing.
I'm sure that you will be agree with me when I say that was insightful, knowledgeful presentation. Thank you very much, sir. As the program has come to an end, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Honorable Chief Guest, Chief Commissioner of Sri Lanka Scout Association, Mr. Janaprit Fernando, the Deputy Chief Commissioner of Sri Lanka Scout Association, Mr. M.F.S. Muaid, the International Commissioner of Sri Lanka Scout Association, Dr. Rajiv Pires, Headquarters Commissioner of Sri Lanka Scout Association, Dr. Azan Keriava, Dr. Anil Pereira, District Commissioner of Homagama District Scout Branch, who organized this program, Meena Sadanandan, Scout Leader, and Anushani Kirin, the District Scout Leader, who assisted in the interpretation, the International Department at Sri Lanka Scout Association, and all of you who participated to success this event. Thank you all. Good night.